I'm Jeff Goldberg from The Atlantic, and I'm with Mitch Landrieu, the mayor of New Orleans, and we're talking about his work in New Orleans to reduce the level of homicide in the city. You are one of the only politicians I've seen in this country who actually thinks that you could bring that number down. What is motivating you, A, and B, where are the other leaders on this question?
Wow, well, I'll get to that one in a minute, but I think generally speaking, I really originally approached it from, I have a problem, I've got to fix my problem vantage point. When I became the mayor of the city was, as you know, completely destroyed from Katrina and Rita. We had to rebuild the entire city, which we're in the process of doing, and everything that a mayor would do to do that, we're in the process of rebuilding healthcare, education, transportation, infrastructure, jobs, all of that stuff. But crime and violence has always been a challenge in major American cities, and it certainly is in New Orleans, even though crime's gone down dramatically in the country since 1996. But in my city, we actually have this, what I call an epidemic of young African American men killing young African American men. That makes me say, you know, I've got to call attention to this issue because I think it affects us as a country. And so I've decided to really focus in on trying to solve that problem while I'm solving the other crime problems and all the other things that the city has gone through. It is fraught, as you know, because it gets into issues of race, into issues of justice, into issues of responsibility, into issues of, do you even have a right to be talking about this?
I mean, this is my personal view. I'm sure people would argue with it, but I feel as if we accept, as a country, we accept that in certain neighborhoods of certain cities, this is the way it is. Is that a byproduct of classical American racism?
It is uniquely American in the sense that we've been doing this the entire time we've been here, not only about race, but about lots of other stuff. There have been a lot of terrible things that the country has done that we've just kind of walked by, and then all of a sudden we raised our consciousness and said that's not really who we are as a people. And how do you culturally change behavioral patterns? You have some people that say you can't fix it, so why bother? Which gets to the issue of why aren't there other leaders talking about this? I don't know the answer to that question. I can surmise that we all have a lot to do, and most of the problems that we have are intractable.
And maybe people
and
think
one
this
of them
is
is harder
impossible?
than this, and they think it's impossible. I think they're wrong. I think this is a fixable problem.
Because it's cultural. I mean, people misunderstand the way you talk about culture sometimes.
Well, if I'm using the wrong word, tell me, but let's not stop doing the thing because we're saying it the wrong way. I want people to tell me whether or not they think that the lives of poor, young African American men that live in certain communities in every city, whether their lives matter, and then we can save them. That's all I want to know. And if the answer to that is yes, then let's all figure out what we're going to call it. The reason I call it culture, because what culture means to me, behavioral patterns that have developed over time that produce beautiful things like art and music and gumbo, are the same kind of cultural patterns and behavioral patterns that produce bad things, like young kids shooting each other in the head. And if they are behavioral patterns that have formed, you can unform them.
One of the reasons that many mayors don't take this on, I assume it's not racism. I assume that they look at it and say, I don't have the money, resources, talent to fix all of the conditions that need to be fixed, so this culture is supplanted by another more positive. What can one mayor in one city do?
When I became mayor of the city, my job, I see, was very simple: to stop the city of New Orleans from falling over a cliff. My next job was to try to turn us around and to have us look forward. And then the final job was to prepare the city for the next guys that were coming. Now, in that particular piece of that trilogy, what I told my team was, we're going to run to the fire, we're not going to run away from it, and do the thing that is going to delay the gratification so that the city has a chance going into the future, because Detroit didn't go bankrupt overnight. It went bankrupt over 60 years. New Orleans didn't decline from 680 in 1960 to 480 the night before Katrina, and then another 100,000 after. We were making a lot of bad decisions. So my team, all we do is the hard stuff. And if we can solve the hardest issue, everything else is gravy.
When you leave office in 2018, where do you want the city to be? I mean, what is your realistic
Well, I hope that the city will have changed who they are and how they look at themselves, and recognize that it is in fact possible to stem what, in my mind, for the city, as it relates to this specific issue, is basically a modern phenomena, and give the people in the city courage that no matter how hard the problems are, that our future is better. And hopefully, some of this will give people the courage to have the difficult conversations, because if we don't know how to talk to each other yet, but we care enough to get to the answer, we'll eventually work our way through the uneasy conversations if people have an open mind and an open heart and they want to get there. I think we can get there.